And, as usual, it is our honor and privilege and pleasure to welcome John onto the show. He has a website, metahistory.org. He is also author of the book, Not in His Image, which I believe is a must-read for the 21st century. So, once again, welcome, John, and let's continue where we left off.
Yeah, sure. We were saying in the break that how can we have a massive social uprising on this planet? We've had a few already, but they've been local or national. French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Russian Revolution. And how can we have one and not repeat the mistakes of the past? Well, it's very simple. See exactly what those mistakes were. And I think there's a good possibility that we can do that now, or some of us anyway, those who would take a little time in their life to be students of history. I also think that although we still haven't broken through the black magical spell of 9/11, which was a tremendous psyop against the entire human species and gravely shattered and compromised our powers of critical thought and reasoning, although we're still in a dangerous situation because of that psyops, I do believe that a massive education has happened in the 10 years since 9/11. I can certainly concur, and I'm sure everyone hearing me now, hearing our conversation, will concur that before we began the feverish process of trying to work out what happened 10 years ago, who knew about fractional reserve banking? Who knew? You might have known that the Fed was not actually a federal agency, but a private agency. But who knew about the history of it and how it was founded and who's behind it and how it operates today? And who knew about Mussolini's quote that fascism is the marriage of corporate and government powers, and on and on and on? I mean, wouldn't you agree that we've had one hell of an education in the last 10 years?
Yeah, John, as somebody who I consider myself to have been slightly ahead of the curve, so I was actually reading like The Creature from Jekyll Island and, Thieves in the Temple and all these books that were talking about that stuff, but nobody else around me was. And it has been amazing and remarkable to me how much people are aware of that now. And, I live in this time where it's a peculiar place to be where you're proven right. It's like, I don't like being right about this because it's so horrible. Like, some of these facts are so terrible. And then, it was one thing to be the voice in the wilderness whistling all alone, but to now have so many people that I know come up to me and say, you've been saying this for a long time, and it looks like you were probably onto something all along. And it's like, I'm really not very excited about being right about this.
Well, I appreciate your irony there, my friend, but let's take advantage of what we've learned. Yeah. Now, to get back to the Russian Revolution, let's get back to the question of the enemy. If we're going to talk in general terms today about a general civic uprising, a people's revolution on the planet, to claim back, we have to understand, first of all, in the most general and loosest sense, what is its aim and what is its enemy, okay? Well, the aim, let's just say for now that the aim is simple. We just want to be free so that we can have a live and let live world, and people can have a fair enough chance in society. Society can never be entirely fair. It's not perfect. But we know now that it's totally unfair because it's rigged. The game is rigged at every stage, especially in finance, in politics, and in the media. It's all rigged. It's all fraudulent. So what we want is freedom from that, and we want freedom for the individual and for families and communities of people, which is the natural, organic, mosaic formation of human activities, is families and communities. We want freedom for those families and communities, and in a larger sense for nations, to be sovereign and to pursue their own benefits without doing harm to others. That's just let's make that our simple goal. Now, who's the enemy? Well, if we go back to the Russian Revolution, we find that it is said in this remarkable paper, Occult Roots of the Russian Revolution, which you can reference on the internet there.
Yes, at Gnostic.com, right?
Right. There were Gnostic elements in the Russian Revolution. Well, how could we identify that? Let me identify one of them for you. You know, today it's widely known in the alternative media that there is a meme floating around called Prison Planet, and it's associated with Alex Jones. Now, I don't know if Alex Jones, I think Alex Jones was the first person who brought that term, Prison Planet, largely into discussion. But as a matter of fact, Alex Jones, who apparently is a Christian, might be surprised to learn that it was actually Gnostics who were very anti-Christian who actually introduced that term.
Yes, John,
could 2,000 years ago. Yeah.
Could I make a little aside? I think I do recall, didn't Philip K. Dick make reference to the Black Iron Prison?
Yes, he did.
And that was his Prison Planet, right? And he, of course, was a student of Gnosticism.
He was. Philip K. Dick was very inspired by Gnosticism, and he understood the concept of the enemy. That is to say, we live on a prison planet. The Gnostics were the first to point this out, and they explained that there's a basic conflict on this planet, and that is between the divine experiment that we are actually involved in through the Earth, the consciousness and the intelligence of the Earth. The Earth is a living being, a goddess being, the wisdom goddess Sophia, and she conceived an experiment for our species, and we are living out that experiment. And if we were able to live it out freely and without interference, the world would be largely a utopian and paradisical place. It would be a beautiful and harmonious world, as you know, some of us dream of having. But the Gnostics pointed out that instead of being an Eden and instead of being a social utopia where people can get along and enjoy each other and thrive, we have this murky world of division, domination, deceit. We have the authorities running things. We have all the problems that we see in history that are culminating today. Why? Well, they said, because there basically is another system imposed on our system. There is another system imposed on the humanity that we are. And that is an inhumane system. And they called it, actually, cosmos. They used the word cosmos not in the positive sense of some cosmic harmony. For them, cosmos, the word that the manner in which Gnostics used it, would better translate for us to the word system. There's a system. And that is the enemy. The enemy is the system. The enemy is not necessarily any particular individual. However, if a particular individual becomes the instrument of that system, then that individual is also the enemy of the divine experiment, which is to say, a world of freedom, love, and generosity. And so this concept of the system is really important. What we're fighting is the system. And of course, another meme that absolutely resonates with that is the Matrix. So the Gnostics were the first ones to point out that we live in what Philip K. Dick called a two-source hologram. One part of that hologram is projected from the divine imagination of the goddess. And that is the part of the hologram that would be not a perfect world, but a beautiful, harmonious world of mutual aid and generosity and enjoyment. But we also live simultaneously in a second hologramic projection. Dick was really into this, you know. And that is the Matrix. That is the Matrix. So what is the enemy is the Matrix. The enemy is the system. And the system is, when you get down and analyze it, as we've done in the last 10 years, it largely consists of a criminal, an international mafia banking syndicate. That is the main structure of the system. And we know from all the extensive historical studies that people have done in the last 10 years that the foundation of that criminal banking syndicate was laid in the 18th century by Meyer Rothschild in Frankfurt, Germany, and that his criminal, rigged, fraudulent banking practices, which is what they are. He didn't just set up a banking empire with his 5 sons, Meyer Rothschild. He set up a criminal banking system. And that spread very quickly to England through his son Nathan, and it grew very quickly. That's the big black octopus.
Okay, John.
Yeah.
We're at the halfway break, and I see Jason's on the line. If he'll hold on, we'll bring our caller in after this break, so stay tuned with more on Radio Free Humanity with John Lash and Trader X. host, Frater X, and we're talking to John Lash from metahistory.org and author of Not in His Image. We're going to bring the caller on now who's been patiently waiting. So, Jason, you are live with John Lash and Frater X on Radio Free Humanity. What do you have for us? Jason, you are live.
Hey, it's an honor to be talking with Mr. John Lash, and you too, Mr. X. Can I call you Frater?
Absolutely, absolutely. How you doing tonight?
Great. I basically wanted to call in. I mean, right now I'm standing outside, and I already thought about what I was going to say in anticipation of talking to Mr. Lash. But basically I wanted to start with the fact that I am pissed off that our history, we are not taught. Like, I'm into Graham Hancock and Michael Tellinger, and those guys have researched some stuff that should be taught in public schools, you know? And as far as, you know, it just it pisses me off and it blows me away that could happen. And also, John, I wanted to know, have you ever felt Gaia? Have you ever communicated with her? I mean, in a way that you can explain it? Because I haven't. I can't. I don't know how that works. And, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Jason, thank you for calling in. I'd like to address your two questions directly. First of all, we need... if we're going to have a society on this world that makes sense to people and allows them to live their own lives and create a social order that's sustainable, we got to re-educate ourselves entirely regarding our past. And so I totally agree with you. It's an outrage and a shame that the things that we have discovered in what I would call alternative history, through Graham, for instance, an old friend and colleague of mine, Graham Hancock, that alternative history needs to be brought forward and needs to be made absolutely imperative, because without a sense of our history and where we're coming from, we're having no idea where we're going to go. So you have a good reason to be pissed off about that. And maybe, who knows, you in your life and in your way can do something about that by bringing that option to people to open their minds. Secondly, your question's very pointed. Planetary Tantra is a practice of interactive magic with Gaia. And within the interactive magic, it includes a number of facets. One is, yes, communication with Gaia. So I teach how to do that from my own experience. I wouldn't be able to teach it if I hadn't done it myself. So I'm teaching that now on my website and in this little group that I'm doing. And secondly, you do it through intention. You make a commitment to Gaia even before you can actually communicate with her, or before you learn how to access those channels of communication that she makes available. You can make a vow to her, which I call the Gaian Tantra vow, and that states your intention to unite the purpose of your life with her greater life designs. And that's a very powerful vow. Every single person who's been making that lately, who writes me, says that it has strong effects, and that they begin then, once that vow is made, it's a very simple thing, no mumbo-jumbo about it, that the communication and interaction with the living intelligence of the earth, that's what I'm talking about here, my friends, starts to open up. So it's available to anyone who wants to select themselves for that path.